the end of our journey looks something like this. But to get to the beginning of it all, you probably have to go back in time. Back in time to a point where we bought a boat. A boat that was a little bit bigger than anything I'd had prior. A boat that was pretty damn ocean capable. A boat that wasn't exactly what I was looking for in the first place. But sometimes I'm not too sure if it's not the boat that chooses you rather than you choosing the boat. This particular boat had already lived a long and illustrious life. Made in 1984 over at the Swarbrick factory in WA, she'd made her way over towards the east coast and lived up near Pittwater for quite some time. At the point of time when we had come to have a look at her, she was ready for just a little bit of love. If you're going to go out and buy a boat, especially when you start getting up in price a little bit, it's pretty damn important that you get it surveyed. It speaks to the insurance. If you don't have insurance, you can't put your boat in marinas. If you don't have insurance, you cannot get your boat slipped in a lot of marinas. Insurance is absolutely high priority, and it all starts with the survey. So my first swing of the bat was to have a look at the boat myself, and the second one was to organise a time to get her out, get her looked at, and get her assessed. This wasn't the first boat I'd looked at by any means. In fact, it was the last of a long line of boats that I'd looked at. I'd travelled all the way up to Sydney, and in fact I even had a boat slipped in Sydney, only to find that it was not in very good condition at all. It was the second survey that I had carried out on a boat, and it had taught me that there was a lot that I thought I knew that I did not. Not unlike anything else in life, though, it seems, eventually experience starts to pay off. When we got Morning Bird out of the water, she was in pretty reasonable nick, but she certainly was not without her issues. And there was a lot of repairs that had been done on her that certainly were not up to scratch. There was a lot that I probably would have seen for myself, and there was a heck of a lot that the surveyor picked up on. And ultimately it speaks to what the boat is really worth, because the cost of a boat is not the purchase price of the boat so much as it is the purchase price plus all those repairs that you have to do and all the time that you have to spend to get that boat to where you need it to be reliable and aesthetically the way you want it to look. While there was a large gap between what I thought I wanted in a boat and what I ended up settling on, Morning Bird came from a very strong pedigree, being an SNS 34. These boats have done amazing things. They speak to names like Jessie Martin, Jessica Watson, who both single-handed sailed around the world in them, being the youngest people to ever do so in their time. They are an exceptionally strong boat with great seaworthy capacity. And when I started looking at the things I thought I wanted, the creature comforts that may have been amazing to have, but to what extent did I have to take them on, and what would I lose to have them? It seemed to me that to have a solid, seaworthy, beautiful sailing boat was probably a little bit more important than some of those creature comforts. A boat that would keep myself, my crew, my family, my friends safe, even when at times maybe we weren't too sure what we were doing ourselves.
Well, it's been a long fought adventure, but I think I finally got there and bought myself a boat. And appropriately, it is as far away from the main entrance to the yacht club as you could possibly go. But not the worst sight I've ever seen, I gotta say. Yeah, she's not the newest boat on the Marina. In fact, she may well be one of the oldest. But she is one of the most tried and proven models. Pretty well known to this part of the world. And she's hiding just over there somewhere on that dock. I've just managed to get myself a pass clear to get into the club. It's a temporary one, being that I'm going to have to get her out of here this weekend if possible. But I'm going to keep them posted. Potentially I could have it to the end of the month. And she looks a lot like this. However, she's not, because that is Jessica Watson's S&S 34. This, which is an identical boat, but just not quite as pretty.
So at the first available moment, we had to get her out of the Sandringham Yacht Club, and appropriately there was a swing mooring that I was able to rent from a friend over in Blairgowrie. This was our first real sail on Morning Bird, and with winds blowing around 25 to 30 at times at the top of the mast, she did not hesitate, nor was she challenged to sail into it. In fact, she sailed amazingly. In true style, of course, my navigation was not quite as good, and trying to find Monica's swing mooring in Blairgowrie turned out to be a little bit testing. The feeling is that if you own a boat and you love sailing, you need to also love maintenance. The renos, the sail locker, the engine, the gearbox, just the drive line, etc, 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 were all bits and pieces that I would have had to work through to get it to where we needed to be. And the ideal place for me to do that is in Warneet, which is very close to home, and it's also a very cost-effective way of getting your boat slipped. And to do that, we had to sail out through Port Phillip Heads. Okay, so it's 29th of July, 2024, and it's bright and early in the middle of winter in Port Phillip Bay. We are more just outside of Blairgowrie. Actually, we're kind of in Blairgowrie. We're at a marina in Blairgowrie. Looks something like this. And you might notice that it's a little bit hazy outside, and that's because it is the middle of winter in Melbourne. And we've recently been struck by what Jane Bunn considers to be a Antarctic, blast. Which, in all honesty, by some people's Antarctic thinking, really isn't that bad. However, we'll tell you what we really think soon, because we're going to exit the heads of Port Phillip Bay and head over to Western Port. And I don't know, I should really still be in bed. What do you reckon, Rob?
Yes, I know that feeling.
Like a lot of what I've learned about sailing, getting the conditions right is 9/10 of getting to where you want to be with the minimum of hassle. Port Phillip Heads can potentially be a very treacherous piece of water. They have even sunk a pilot boat out there at some stage, because if the conditions are not right, it can be extreme, putting it mildly. I knew this. I also knew that slack water is generally the time to move to transit through what is really a bar. And there is a huge amount of water in Port Phillip that moves in and out every day. And of course, as a result, there's some exceptional currents that flow in and out. Slack water at the heads of Port Phillip is not on the turn of the tide. And this is an education all on its own. In fact, it's 2 hours off turn of tide. And there's good reason for this that I won't go into, but what I will say is if you are going to take the time to do this, take the time to understand it well, and it'll make your journey a heck of a lot easier. For us, it was pretty smooth sailing, to be honest. A lot of homework made a big difference. Because several hours afterwards, or actually half a day really, we were in Warneet. Warneet is an exceptionally friendly place to put your boat. It's a national marina. It's very, very tidal. You need to understand the depths, the tides, etc., etc., etc. But it is pretty damn cost effective, and in addition, it's not far from my home. It allowed me to do a lot of maintenance on the boat, which was pretty damn helpful, and get it to a point where we could then transition the boat to its holiday destination. Sometimes the norm isn't the way to go. In this case, a little bit strange, you might think, but to get a tender on the deck, I actually had to cut a groove in the front of it. And then I started looking at the inside, what I would like to have done, and also what I had to have done. We then slipped her, and she was pulled up on a dolly onto the dry, and I spent quite a bit of time underneath with some assistance of a few colleagues, thank you very much everybody, to get her to where we needed her to be. Anti-foul was something that I'd never done before because I'd always had trailerables, and there are a lot of different types of anti-foul that you can run on your boat. Once again, talking to a lot of people about where you are going to put the boat, what you want to do with the boat, actually plays a big part in what you end up doing to the boat to get it to that point. Different anti-fouls apply for different areas, as it turns out, and there are primers required to go with anti-fouls, etc., etc., etc. But at the end of the day, we got her all together, and she come up pretty damn well.
So it's been gee whiz, I don't know, quite a few months, probably about 3-4 months ago, we went out and bought another boat, and needed a lot of love. I needed something that was, to be honest, I had a lot of things that I wanted and probably half the things that I actually got. But one thing I certainly have got is a boat that sails very, very well and is very, very seaworthy. And it's probably not a bad thing because I don't know that the skipper is as seaworthy as the boat is.
So the next part of our journey was to move her out of Western Port and take her up the coast to one of my all-time favourite places. A place that is like the heart of sailing in Victoria, and that place is Paynesville. To do that, we had to do it in several legs, and it's roughly 250 nautical miles from Warneet up to Paynesville, so it was going to involve some overnight sailing. The first leg of the journey was to take her to Flinders. Ironically, we got delayed because I stuffed around way too much, and then by the time we did hit the water going up to Flinders, we got halfway there and were against the tide, so we ended up sticking her in Cowes for a while until the tide turned. We then headed out of Western Port and hit Bass Strait at somewhere around sunset. It was a stunning little sail, a beautiful sail, pretty well to the point that we turned into Bass Strait, and then everything got a lot more hectic. The weather forecasts that had been measured for in the proximity of 15 to 20 knots Well, this is kind of not really that accurate, and the swell was well up on that as well. But the journey was pretty damn exciting. Our first stop was to be Refuge Cove, and it wasn't until the morning, I guess, that we really realised just how aggressive the weather was.
Rob, how are you feeling?
Yeah, not great.
Nah, you've survived though without any sleep. Incredible. Got through the night. I've had 2 sleeps, Rob's had none. And it's a little bit choppy.
We saw the wind meter cap 40 knots several times, but ironically, the boat did not complain, whereas maybe we did. Refuge Cove has got to be one of my all-time favourite destinations. It is absolutely stunning. And to be able to get back down there again, this is the 3rd boat that I've been down there on, was really, really enjoyable. And even if we were only going to be there for a night, it was well worth the effort. We got in at about 3 o'clock, and it gave us time to have a good look around.
Oh, what a beautiful, 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 beautiful part of the world.
Next leg of the journey, of course, was Refuge Cove and to get up to Paynesville. And to do that, we had to enter through Lake's entrance. It's probably in the proximity of about 18 to 20 hours, depending on whether you're doing 4 or 5 knots. And the bar in Lake's entrance, no different than any other, needs to be entered on reasonable conditions. This would either be at an incoming tide or ideally at slack tide, we were told. And slack was, or peak of slack was at about 9 a.m. So we needed to get there before then.
So it's Saturday and we've been on the water for all of about 2.5 hours. We're just passing a little island called Rag Island, which is part of a bigger island group, which isn't very big at all. But it's just to the south of Wilson's Prom. There's the Rag Island there, and there's my tender, and there is Wilson's Prom. So the plan today is get to Lake's entrance, and once we get to Lakes, then we'll stay there the night maybe, and then make our way through Paynesville. Lakes from here is about 18 hours away roughly, and we've allowed 24 hours. Got to get in there for an incoming tide, and naturally we want to get in there for nice quiet weather as well. So yeah, looking good, on track.
Once we got out from Refuge, there was not a lot of boating traffic, but there certainly is boating traffic to be aware of. And it seems ironic that you can have hardly anyone out there and still be on the ley line of a boat that's crossing your direction. At one point there, we called into a ship just to let them know that we're ahead of them. We have an AIS receiver but do not have an AIS transmitter. We were watching the times consistently to make sure that we got into Lake's entrance pretty well at the right point in time. The evening sail was nothing short of beautiful, and I can only let the pictures tell the story. And as we worked our way into the morning, we were then doing quite a bit of homework as to exactly what does it look like to come into Lake's entrance. I knew the basics, but there are markers to be, lead lights to be lined up on the entry. And I'd spoken to the harbour master before we left, and he had mentioned also that it's a really good idea to call in all shipping and let people know that you're on the way in so that you're not in their way as they are coming out. As an incoming boat, you have a right of entry, a right of way. However, commercial shipping has another story going on as well. The lead lights, there's a triangle and also a straight line that had to be lined up, and that got us online. We pretty well hit about 3 hours, maybe 2.5 hours before slack tide, and it was, in all honesty, pretty damn smooth. On departure from Western Port, we'd also registered with Marine Radio Victoria our journey so that they could make sure we were in a good spot. Naturally, to do so, we also had to deregister at the end. Marine Radio Victoria, Marine Radio Victoria, Marine Radio Victoria. This is Morning Bird, Morning Bird, Morning Bird. Coming over.
Morning Bird, this is Marine Radio Victoria, go ahead over.
Marine Radio Victoria, Marine Radio Victoria, this is Morning Bird. Just registering the end of our journey. We have arrived at Lake's entrance from Warneed. Over.
Morning Bird, Marine Radio Victoria, all received, arrived at Lake's entrance, all good, thank you. Marine Radio Victoria, standing by.
Now, wouldn't you think that after all that sailing over the last 3 days that we would not want to be sailing again in a real hurry, and maybe we would have just stayed at Lake's entrance? Well, hell no. Ironically, we were pretty enthusiastic still. So the trip from Lake's entrance through to Paynesville is basically transit through the lake system. Gippsland Lakes are not exactly deep, and we draw 1.8 metres of draft. However, if you stick to the channels, you'll find you'll get through there pretty smoothly, and the scenery and the wildlife is stunning. So Gippsland Lakes will be the home for Morning Bird for quite a little while. It is full of lots and lots of beautiful little sailing destinations, surrounded by lots and lots of sailing people who love to talk about nothing more than sailing, so perfect for us. So a big call out for everybody who assisted. Thank you so much, Rob, for your efforts, mate. I would not have been able to do this trip without you. Thank you so much to my family, especially my wife, for putting up with my endless late nights and endless conversations about boats, 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 and more boats. Thank you to Kay for her sewing skills, and thank you to you all for watching this.
And remarkably, that is that. We have got Morning Bird back on the marina. Well, actually, she's never been on this marina, but she's now in Paynesville, and this is where she's going to live until June next year.